Hello, everyone. In this video, we are going to go over workflows in Enagageto. Workflows are pre-created messages that we can send to our leads or users, depending on how they reply to us. Creating a workflow in Enagageto is very easy. We just need to navigate to automation in workflows. Then we click on Add Workflow and give it a good name, like Code Workflow. As soon as we create it and go inside the view, we will see the Flow Start node. This is basically the starting point of the workflow. Here, we need to define how we want the workflow to be triggered. There are mainly 4 different ways a workflow can be triggered: keywords, new lead, lead status, and lead project. With keywords, we can set a few predefined messages that we expect from a user. For example, hi, hello, I want to know more, and so on. In a single workflow, we can have a maximum of 5 keywords. The second way to trigger a workflow is with a new lead. This means whenever there is a new lead coming in, either from someone directly messaging us in Enagageto, or from uploading an Excel file in Enagageto, and then receiving a message from that lead. If Enagageto is integrated with any CRM, this gives us more opportunities. For example, if Enagageto is integrated with LeadRat, we get more options like sources, because most leads come from different sources. Facebook is one source, LinkedIn is another. If we click Facebook here, then any lead that comes from Facebook will trigger this workflow, and a message will be sent to that lead automatically to their number. The third way is lead status. Lead status defines whenever there is a change in status for any lead in the CRM. The 3 options we see here, new lead, list status, and lead project, will only be triggered when Enagageto is integrated with a CRM like Tract. Continuing with lead status, in lead status we have all the statuses that are available in LeadRat. For example, since LeadRat is the main example we can use here, let's assume we want to trigger this workflow whenever there is a status change from anything to pending. In that case, this workflow will get triggered. At last, we have lead project, which will get triggered whenever a user is inquiring about a certain project. In this case, we can just add all the projects at once. If the user is interested in any of the 3 projects, we can add a message node that will carry a message to them, such as, "Hi, thank you for showing interest in this project." We can also ask, "What do you want to know more about it?" or provide any suitable message for the lead. Now, we need to connect this to the node with this string. This will define the direction our workflow should go in. We can create as many further nodes as we want. For example, if we do not want to show this message first, but want a different message, we can add it here, like, "Hi, what is your name?" Once this message is set, we can attach a further node to trigger it. In this way, we define the direction in which our workflow will be triggered. Now, once users send a message to this node, the message editor will prompt the question, "Hi, what is your name?" The workflow will only move on to the next node after users respond to this question. Otherwise, it will remain on the current node. After a certain period, the workflow will either close or stop. If we want to store the user's response, we can do this by clicking on Save Customer Response. Here, we can create a variable for the response. Since the question is, "What is your name?" we can add a variable, such as name or lead name, and select it as the variable for the response to this question. This information will now be saved in the lead name variable within the workflow. Continuing, there are more types of nodes that can be triggered. For example, the text button allows us to add buttons to our messages. For instance, we can add a button labeled yes or another button labeled no for any question we ask. This gives users 2 options to choose from. We can also provide a list of buttons. There is a maximum of 3 buttons at a time, so this is the 3rd button. If we want to add more options, we can use the list option. To do this, we first have to create the list. We get this option here where we can create the list. Once the list is created, we can simply select it. In this example, the list contains just 1 button. So that is why we can see only 1 here. The minimum is 1, and the maximum is 20. You can add up to 20 buttons in the list. Then we have the Send Template node. The Send Template node allows us to select a template that we have created for any project or property and use it right here. We also have a Set Timeout option. When we toggle this, it gives us another option to add a timeout. This is helpful if a user, for example, has ghosted us or is not replying for 1 to 2 hours. We may want to send them a message or reminder that they have left the chat in between so they can come back and continue the conversation. For this, we use the Set Timeout. For example, after 60 minutes, we can trigger a different message that tells the user, "Hey, you have left the chat in between, please continue." This acts as a reminder to the lead. Then we have Media Type. Media Type helps us send images, videos, documents, and other files, which we can add in the header. If we want to send a header as text, we can do that. If it is an image, video, or document, we use this node. Next, we have the Trigger Webhook URL node. The Trigger Webhook URL node plays a very important role in creating leads in our CRM. For example, let's say there is a new lead who has messaged us, and now we want all the details of that lead. We will start by creating a flow where we ask questions such as, "What is your name?" And then, "What is your location?" Next, we can add a question like, "What are you looking for?" and continue based on the user's replies. For example, if the user says they are looking for a 2BHK, we can create a button for 2BHK. By giving them the option to select 2BHK, we can add more nodes that will keep triggering as the conversation continues. In each node, we can store the user's response in a variable. Now, let's see how we can use this variable. After we have asked all the questions and the user has replied to each one, we can use a curl, which we get from LeadRat or any other CRM. We just paste the curl here. In this curl, we will have all the properties needed to create a lead. In the same way, we can paste the curl, and all the properties will appear in the Customize Body section. We will show an example by adding a dummy one. Let's say there is a property like name of the lead. We can select the attribute. If you remember, in one of the previous nodes, we created lead name as one of the variables. We can use that variable and also give a follow-up value, such as user. What happens here is that this curl acts like an API call, sending data from Engage to one of the CRMs, which helps the CRM create that lead. So, if we have asked all the questions and have all the information about the lead, we can continue to add properties one by one, such as name, location, inquired location, BHK type, and so on. Once we have all the details of the lead, we can save it. So by save, we mean that we can complete this workflow and then simply activate it. This active and inactive option lets us control whether the workflow sends messages to users. If we want to stop the workflow from sending messages, we can set it to inactive. If we want to keep the workflow running, we just toggle it back to active. Once we have created our workflow, we can click on the Save button. We see that a fallback value is required, so for now, we will just remove this. Great. This creates our workflow. Now, whenever we receive a message from a user, using this example, if a user inquires about a particular project, this workflow will be triggered. That completes our workflow.